Jennifer Tramontana, president and founder of the Fletcher Group, talks to host Doug Simon on PR's Top Pros Talk.
So many agencies, brands, organizations have a niche that they're trying to target. And if that's what you're trying to build, we've got the perfect guest for you. Jennifer, why don't you start by sharing a little bit about the niche that you've really been able to target to help grow your agency?
Sure, and thanks so much for having me. This is really an honor to be able to talk to your audience today. So I started the Fletcher Group in 2005. We're actually in our 20th anniversary now. And at the time, I really had a choice, either be a generalist PR agency or go deep in one space. And what we chose to go deep into is the payments and fintech industry. And at the time, that was a little bit sort of counterintuitive. It was sort of more of a nascent industry back then. Most people didn't even know about it. It was alternative payments. The word fintech actually didn't even really exist back then. But I was lucky in that the industry was starting, and I met sort of a number of like builders and innovators who were in the space kind of building up this industry. And so I got this like front row seat to what they were doing. So I wasn't smart enough to have created this industry, but I was smart enough to see that there were like some great people building in it and that this was probably going to be big. So when I started to see what was actually happening, I was like, I think that this industry is going to take shape and we can really be alongside with them to tell these amazing stories to consumers and small businesses and corporates about how changes in payments, particularly on the digital side, can really change their business and move money in ways that were cheaper, better, safer, all the things that we're used to today.
Yeah, so my takeaway from that is if you pick a niche, pick one that's going to be growing. You don't want to be in a niche that's on a downward swing. So obviously, you
For
combine
sure.
smarts, good fortune to realize, hey, this is going to be a big thing, sort of like people who jumped into AI a couple
Yeah.
of years ago. But
I mean, none of us have a crystal ball, right? Of
wait,
course,
wait,
what you
wait.
just
You
said is
just dispelled my whole myth about PR. Isn't that our whole thing that we've got that? And that's why people should hire
well,
us.
that's what we project, but this is amongst, friends, right? So let's tell really the truth about that we don't all have a crystal ball. And of course, if we could all pick like the right industry to go into, we would all be geniuses, right? So I feel like I was lucky. I sort of fell into something, but then hopefully was smart enough to take the opportunity and kind of run with it. But you do, to your point, have to pay close attention to what's happening, right? Like, is your industry starting to fragment? Are there huge competitive pressures that might cause this industry to completely tank? We can't, the black swan events like COVID or whatever it is, or a war or something, those are not things we can generally, be ready for, but we can watch trends and be really smart about making sure that if you are going to pick an industry niche, that you pick one that is enough on the upswing, also broad enough that you can also broaden like what you're offering and maybe work with tangential companies. So one of the things that we've been really successful in this niche is that we started out with like really pure payments companies, but as those companies grew and changed and started to do more things, we kind of like grew along with them and started offering the services to to be broader. So that's really important. You've got to really compound your expertise in a way that generalists can't. But you also still have to stick to all of the fundamentals of like good storytelling. That is never going to go out of style. The differentiator is that you need to, make sure that you understand an industry well enough that you can tell good stories that also are like really grounded in expertise and reality.
So interesting because it seems like a real combination of a hyper focus when you think of a niche, but also the flexibility to do things differently because you may have picked a niche and it sort of picked you together at the same time in this
Yeah.
payments type of companies, but then you had to become flexible and versatile to handle the different opportunities as it grow, as
Yeah.
it grew.
One of the first companies we started working with is a really large company that none of your audience will probably have heard of, except for they utilize it on a regular basis. So it's a company called Blackhawk Network. And Blackhawk is the company that created the gift card malls that now you go into Home Depot or your local Safeway or whatever it is, and all of the gift cards are there. So whenever you've purchased one, off what we call a J hook in the supermarket, that's our client Blackhawk that created that. And of course, over the years has added that to, online and digital offerings and all those kind of things. So those were the kind of companies we initially started working for. But then over time, and in particular, as payments became more digital, there were companies that were doing processing behind the scenes. So the kind of companies that make like Apple Pay and PayPal work, or if you ever do a buy now, pay later transaction online, there are companies behind the scenes that are making all of that happen. So we had to like learn that and start working for them. And then, now there's all these like fraud and digital identity companies because, there's more fraud and it's changed and we have to make sure that people are protected when they're doing purchases online. So we had to learn all of that and work for those kind of companies. And then on top of that, we were originally just a pure PR agency. All of the people that worked here were just pure PR specialists from the beginning of their careers. But then we started adding content marketing and sales enablement and other services that the companies in our niche on their marketing teams they needed help with. So we stayed in the one niche, but we started to deepen the offerings to get sort of like more share of their, marketing wallet over time.
We hear so much about company culture, and I'd say one of the proudest things I feel of my 40 years in business. Well, July 4th will be our 40th anniversary, so I don't quite want to jump the gun on that. Is our average tenure is 12 years. Keeping the team together, I almost think that's like the best statement that could be made about company culture. But you have a number of insights there too about how do you keep the company culture intact.
Yeah, the thing that I like to talk about the most is our company culture for sure. So it's no secret that PR has a reputation for turning over, staff. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that. It's not necessarily that, PR agencies are bad or, that people don't know how to manage this industry effectively, but it's a hard job. I think I read somewhere that like it's one of the top like 10 most stressful jobs there is out there because every day we got to come in and try to make something happen for our clients that is not guaranteed, and we have to be really smart about speaking to journalists.
That
Yeah.
might be on the agency side where you have those kinds of stresses. In-house people have a different type of stress, but they're more involved with having a team, getting the most out of the people who are working and supporting them. So there are different pieces of the industry where stresses
Yeah.
are different.
When I started Fletcher Group in 2005, the vast majority of people who worked in PR were women. It's still a women-centric industry, but there's certainly lots more men in it now. And what would happen is I saw it with my own eyes sort of over and over again that women would get into their, kind of early 30s, they'd have a baby, and then they wouldn't come back because it was just too difficult. It was such an on-demand profession, stressful, having to go into the office, all that kind of stuff. So we started by being the first thing that we put in place is that we would be remote, which sounds totally normal today, but was completely
Right.
novel and odd in 2005. And we definitely didn't advertise to to clients that we were remote because we were worried they would think that we weren't a real company if we didn't have an
Right.
office. But, again, as we've all seen over the years, remote has been just fine. And then we did other things as well. The whole point of our culture is that I believe that people can have a very successful career and something that is, not a sort of mid-tier career, but like a hard-charging career, while also wanting to have a family or a personal life or personal commitments outside of the office. I think that when you find people who want all of those things, and you can find a balance for how you can work in that capacity, and you have a culture of support and others who believe in that as well. Not only does it, keep people here long term, which it does, we have an incredibly strong retention rate of both our team members as well as our clients, which is driven from that as well.
Right.
But also, they just, well-rounded people are better at PR. Like
Mhm.
if you have a good life outside of the office and you're out there experiencing life in ways that I think that bringing that back to the office and the storytelling for our clients makes a lot of sense. So there's that. So that our culture is just really what it's built around, really like, support. We actually call ourselves the amoeba culture. And what we mean by this is sort of, amoebas are always like, they're like stretching and,
Yeah.
changing shape and all
Evolving
this.
shape.
That's right. We feel like our organization is like that. Like we as a group sort of like flex and wane based on what our clients need or what the other, people that work here need. And that's been really, key to our, key to our success. The other thing I think is really, really important about culture, though, is that you have to be very honest about what your culture is, not what sounds good, like in a job posting. So
Mhm.
we're very clear about what we offer, what we don't offer. We try to attract people that are the genuine right fit. We're not for everybody, and that's completely fine. And there are, I'm sure, people that work at, other
Right.
places that offer things that we don't, and it's just much better for them. But as long as you are just completely honest and true to that, then usually people I think are pretty happy because they know what they signed up for, and you're living it in your values every day.
I love that because one of the things I say, I was once asked on a podcast to talk about something that you believe that almost everyone disagrees with you about. So I thought about it, and what I came up with, actually knew pretty quickly, is that for people who are fortunate like us and the people who work with us who have a college degree and have those types of jobs that require that kind of thinking, not everyone has the luxury. I think the idea of a work-life balance is a BS concept because it creates the idea of a zero-sum game. You put more into
Yeah,
work, your life's worse. You put more into your life, your work is worse. And I'm like,
yeah,
why can't they just reinforce each other and
yeah,
make each part of your life more rewarding if you've got the luxury to be able to pursue that opportunity? I'm not
yeah.
talking about, if you're scrambling, working two jobs and delivering and whatever to get by and meet the next rent payment, that's a different thing for the
Yeah,
people.
it is. And I like the way that you frame it. And, also again, to be like just totally honest with the audience, here, we can't work for every client, like there are lots of clients that could be very lucrative, but require such an on-demand, kind of relationship that it just wouldn't work for our organization. We're not a huge company. We could certainly be better. Again, the niche that we are in is huge and is like we have the luxury of like, having a lot of new business that comes to us. But again, we have to choose the right clients, the right people, the right services to make it work. And it works for us, but under someone else's leadership, we might look totally different.
I'd like to get to one of my favorite topics that we've been talking about a lot these days, the whole idea of AI and generative engine optimization and the incredibly rapid switch. I mean, we literally changed our product at the end of
Yeah.
last October from satellite media tours to AI powered tours to make sure that we were improving clients' GEO when we were doing the
Yeah.
earned media projects. I mean, the transformation's been so rapid. Um, what are you advising clients about that?
So the first thing that we're telling clients, and it's kind of self-serving, but it's the truth, is that earned media has never mattered any time more than it does right now. So,
Yep.
I'm sure everybody saw Muckrak's research from last year that something like 89% of the links that are cited by the AI LLMs, they come from earned media and other sources of
Yep.
authoritative content. So you have to invest in PR and authoritative thought leadership. And if you don't, you're basically invisible to the tools that your buyers are using to research you. So that's, very important. And GEO isn't really a replacement for SEO. It's an evolution, and it really rewards what good communications has always rewarded: credibility, consistency, data, sources, strong points of view from people that the algorithms trust, right? So it's just kind of like leaning into that. We do an annual research study at the Fletcher Group. It's a women CMOs in fintech report. We've been doing it for several
Interesting.
years. Yeah, and one of our respondents last year said that their search volume grew more than 300% in 6 months in LL-driven models by focusing only on earned media visibility and trusted channel presence. So like this is happening. It's very meaningful, and it's a nice validation and continuation of I think what we've always known, right? Like that this is the right kind of content. But the other thing we're telling clients, very honestly, is that measurement of this is really still very experimental, which is fine. We just all have to go in with our eyes sort of wide open and share with each other. Like there's no silver bullet right now to
Mhm.
really understanding exactly like do X and Y will happen or how to measure it effectively. So we're telling them to run experiments, track what you can. Don't let the absence of a perfect measurement framework be an excuse for inaction. But that is something that, like, the measurement is just not there yet. Like the very precise measurement of how this is all working. So we just need to keep experimenting.
Yeah, and what we're seeing in that is that it can't be just a one slice. Oh, our print
Yeah,
we're going to do. You got to be across everything. That's actually we've seen a significant growth, and that showed up in our AI in the newsroom survey. As stations are really adapting. 37% are finding about stories through AI related search, and if stations are given two stories to consider, I'm sorry, that was just like a 6-7 moment. I don't know if I should have gone there with that. But if they're given two stories to consider, 68% of them will prefer the one that they feel is optimized for AI search, which is a difference. One other key finding that we've seen come out, because earned media used to be the province for consumer B2C, increasingly B2B, and
yeah,
significantly higher percentage of B2B customers are using AI search. And it's a
yeah.
huge number in general because anyone who goes to Google is doing AI search now. But even more of them, I believe it's more than 90%, would be using AI search to find partners. So that's huge. Any final thoughts you'd like to leave our audience with?
So let me just say one more thing about AI that I think is really important, and to any of those software vendors for our industry out there, we really need them to move fast right now because if they don't, we're going to end up doing it ourselves. We have a number of tools and software, services that we pay for as an agency that have been terrific, but we need them to move fast into implementing AI because I got people on my team, particularly young people, who are figuring out how to replicate, what some of our software providers are providing to us in a much more customized way. So
Yeah.
I don't want to go out and build all of my own software. That is not something I really want to do, but we need them to, like my dream, or what I'm telling our folks about AI, at least for our internal organization, is like, great if it's going to help us, be better writers or, gain some efficiencies. But I really want us to use imagination for like, what can AI help us do that we never even thought about before? And to me, that sort of like panacea is every time we're going out to a journalist, it's like, I want us to be able to find the right journalist at exactly the right moment, give them a custom, pitch that makes sense for them, based on, a custom media list with just everything like customized to like that moment in time for them. And I feel like our software providers should be helping us move towards that. And if not, we're just going to start experimenting and filling the gap on ourselves. I'd really much rather pay for a purpose-built, solution than build it
Yeah.
ourselves. But I think
Well,
that's really important that they know that, like, if you have anybody on your team, who cares about technology or is young, they're just starting to go out and try these things on their own and
yeah.
having a lot of success.
Thanks so much for being a guest on the podcast. Loved having you. Continued awesome success.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.